Good morning. Why can't I hear you? I can see you've unmuted, but I can't hear you. I haven't changed anything. I was just talking to Thomas, so I haven't.
No, it's probably me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I thought I was going deaf. You know that fear of what if I wake up one morning and I can't hear? No, it's happened.
Well, it's funny you should say that because my ears were a bit blocked up yesterday, so I was actually going through exactly that. Where I was going, what? You know, I couldn't hear anything. So, but you're okay now. You can.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you perfectly. Awesome.
Okay. How are you doing?
Good. How was your weekend?
Yeah, well, it was a very rare weekend because it was the first time we'd gone away as a family all year, and because we were supposed to be going to America way back. That seems like ages ago now. Sort of back around sort of until Trump sort of cancelled our holiday for us, and then and then we were changed it to Spain, and then just before we were about to go to Spain, the restriction on coming back from Spain sort of kicked in, where you had to sort of quarantine 2 weeks, which kind of kiboshed it for us as a family. And then we've had every time it's like sort of watching where we're planning to go, and then sort of introducing some new restrictions. So we just said, we'll have limited time. So we just went away to London for the weekend as the five of us. And so it's me and my wife, and we've got three boys, you know, all teenagers. So they're all kind of skulking around, you know.
Yeah.
But then we said, well, let's go to Oxford Street and do some shopping. They went, all right, okay. And they were sort of, they went along, but we just spent a lot of time just walking around London at the weekend. So I'm tired physically at the moment,
Yeah.
but I'm sort of mentally okay. And but what about yourself? What were you doing? You said your husband sometimes is around and sometimes isn't because he kind of works on in the mines.
Yeah, he's away at the moment. He does 2 weeks on, 1 week off. He's very transient with his jobs. He jumps around a lot, so he's in the process of waiting to hear about a new job, but he's only been at the one he's at for 2 swings, so this is his second roster, so very frustrating to be honest. But yeah, he's 2 weeks off, 1 week home. So I mean, it's pretty good from the perspective of he gets a whole week at home that he can relax, do some catch-up work and things like that. But he's very lucky. I do a lot of stuff, so he doesn't have to when he comes home. But it's beautiful spring weather here now. It's like we're sitting in the mid-20s from the temperature perspective. And yesterday was 31, which was very unusual for this time of the year. Today was 27, I think, but it's sitting around for the rest of the week around 23, 24. So beautiful get outside weather. So that's what I did on the weekend.
Well, ours is now turning to stay inside weather. So it's but the clock about, and it's fine actually in the morning, but then when it gets darker a little bit earlier, it's sort of, you go, you know, but it's okay. Anyway,
your times have changed, your clock's changed, so okay. All right, so the intent of this next hour, or just, you know, we've got up to an hour, is to create a structure that will work for you and, you know, work out on what outcomes you want to achieve. Because how I work with clients, which is a little bit different than some of the other coaches, is I don't have a flow that is across the board. I work a flow that works for the client. So for me, it's about, like Thomas, for example, he's blaze energy. He likes to work in a certain flow that will work for him. And as long as we achieve outcomes, I'm happy to support him in that flow. If we're not, then I've got to shift him a little bit to create the outcomes. It's the same with you, you know, to create a structured approach that works for you. And for me, I adapt to the flow that works, but also have high accountability based on the agreement we set. So, you know, if we've got this as an outcome and we set the goal for the next, say, 12 months, for example, of what you want to achieve, and then we break it down into a workable plan. Now, a promotion plan is how my head works, but a plan that works for you. And then we look at the outcome, then objectives we have for that. there's a flexibility level that fits in amongst that. But ultimately, I don't care how flexible it is as long as we're achieving the goals. So it's a matter of you telling me how you want to work and us setting a structure around that.
Okay. All right. Okay. So how do you want me to just sort of ramble for a bit about what I want, or the particular set questions, or how do we do the next
what I'm
bit
going to do is my dog's right here and he's decided he wants to play, so I'm just going to put him outside.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Think about that.
Okay, I'll have a think. Okay.
Oh, he's standing on his hind legs begging at the moment. Come on.
Right.
Come on. No, we're not playing. Seriously, why does he have to do this so last minute? Funny dog. All right, so it's more about, yes, definitely we're going to talk about what you want to achieve, but it's more about what works best for you from a structure perspective with our coaching, and where are your weak points that you know you need that real support around it. So what's the best structure? What would work best for you?
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, all right. So what would work best for me is I'm not absolutely 100% sure, but what became very clear, I think, since if we start at the beginning of my involvement with Genius U, which is sort of middle of June, is that I'd been sort of ploughing a furrow, probably quite a lonely furrow, I think, sort of for 9 years. And although I didn't sort of actually feel particularly lonely during that time, the thing is, I have been mentoring, as I said, people who are startups. I've never actually really had any mentoring myself, and what the eye opener was for me was that actually there were all sorts of amazing, inspirational people, little bits of my kind of personal jigsaw that would help me onto better things. I'll define what better things means in a minute, but I'll come back to that. So if I don't, remind me. But what I've sort of taken away from that is that whilst the whole, if I can just sort of be frank about it, I find some of the Genius U thing, I find it all a bit of a circus. So there's a big circus, Genius U circus sort of going on, and some of it is brilliant, and some of it is kind of hoopla, and in terms of some of the things that we're, well, no, I don't. Do I mean hoopla? It's the wrong phrase, but basically, I find there's an awful lot of stuff, and I could dig around in the archives of Genius U and find more than enough content. I could develop myself for 60 hours a week. And I'd be really happy as Larry, but I wouldn't have any income, because I wouldn't actually be there kind of applying it. And so I realized that what I need to sort of, after having been deeply involved with Genius U for sort of 2 or 3 months, culminating in the summer school, I've just got to sort of pull back a bit and just get on with my work. But I still need that regular rhythm of mentoring. And I think you said it, where you said, it actually, I thought about it for a few weeks afterwards. You just said you've got amazing potential, but you just don't realize it yet. And Gordon said something like, and he was in on that conversation, and he was sort of saying, he said, I don't sense any intent to change. And I don't think the intent, I didn't think that was right, because actually the intent is very strong. But what is lacking, I think, more than anything else, is there is something holding me back, and I think it's to do with, I've got a route map now, thanks to the summer school, I think, and but I think there's a lot of personal, there's a lack of confidence that I can do it, I think, and so there's something holding me back in my head, I think, and I'll give you an example. Is that so I'm planning to launch some of the adapted versions of some of the products you might have seen in the Trusted Buyers Club. My Clever Content Audit, my Clever Content Blueprint, my Clever Content Do It For You product, which I've sold at least one of each of those in the Trusted Buyers Club. And so I have some sort of feeling that there is something about them that people want to buy, rolling it out to the quotes outside world. And I've got all the kind of, the price in mind, and I've got everything set up, and I've got but there's something that's kind of makes me slightly fearful, as I approach the point. I'm planning to launch it the week after half term, which is now next week. This is half term this week, here in the UK, and it is a sort of fear that if you almost like, I feel like I've got this product and I'm going to launch it, and I know I've got a plan, but then what if the world doesn't listen? What if the world's doesn't care? And so it's a bit of fear, I think, that's there. I think I'm working really hard. I'm trying my best. I also think that it's a tough market at the moment. I've got work, but it is very much with existing clients, and I haven't got a lot of new work sort of coming in. My pipeline's been building up thanks to a lot of more LinkedIn activity, and I'm not sure whether I'm answering your question, but for me, there's something about the mindset that's kind of holding me back, and that's mostly it. But I forgot. Go on. Am I answering your question? Am I not answering your question?
No, I'm glad you said that, because I think, you can have all the structure in the world, but if you don't have the belief behind it for whatever reason, then it's just stuff. It's like I say to people, if we create a plan and you don't have the passion and purpose behind following that plan, or not even the steps, it's achieving the outcome, then it's just a piece of paper, or it's just a document on your computer, and you might take actions, but you don't fully believe it, so you never really get the success. And it is interesting, because so much of what coaching is about is mindset, and that confidence. The credibility comes from external, the trust from the market, and confidence is your internal trust. And that's the different, and that's definitely something we can work on, is making sure that we're, if you've got getting some traction externally, but you're not getting enough for whatever reason, it's your internal trust that's the problem, like you said. That's what confidence is. So we'll work through that.
So, there's a, if you think about what are the grounds for my sort of internal lack of self-trust at the moment, it's kind of they're very spurious grounds that I have for thinking that, because I'm constantly, people are telling me you've done a great job on something, and if I look back at, so I've been doing this 9 years. On those 9 years, I've generated probably, let's think now, probably about an average of about £600,000 income. So I mean, the average over those 7 years over those 9 years is probably about £70,000. So I don't know what that is in Aussie dollars, but it's okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, in terms of generating an income, but I do feel at the moment it kind of plateaued about sort of 2 or 3 years ago, and it's kind of been going like that sort of since. Not nothing dramatic, but I just feel as though there's so much more to come out of me, and I feel like I've kind of loaded the gun, and I'm trying to pull the trigger, and nothing's coming out. In terms of, and I feel like, and I've got plans, like I've got a promotion plan, I've got the flight deck, I've got the Neeraj LinkedIn plan, I've got the customer journey plan, and they are living documents, in that I am updating them sort of regularly, and I'm getting a lot of valuable insight from sort of tracking my progress against against the things I've set. But there is still a sort of lingering kind of, what if nobody's interested in this? What if that kind of holds me back, that makes me sort of procrastinate a bit. So
all right. So let's.
I'm just being completely honest here because that's
cool.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes as we go because this is recorded and the recordings will go onto a drive, the Google Drive that you'll get access to. So you can look back on them plus any other documents that we discuss. Okay, no, this is great. And to give you how, from this perspective of our sessions, is I can see that working with you in the best way is to, working through a plan, but also working through that mental plan that goes with it. And it's like someone that coached me once worked out very quickly that it was a similar type thing. So this was way back when, years ago when someone was coaching me, and it was actually an action coach when I was part of Action Coach. And I coached him to coach me. That's how it ended up. Like he said, Terry, I was the #1 female coach globally. He said, Terry, what would it take to be coached by you? And I said, you just made it happen. So we worked it out, and then I coached him, and then I coached him into being my coach. And he said to me a few things about the way that I operate. And, he was at that level himself because I'd helped him. But when we flipped it on its head, he said to me, you're your own worst enemy because you don't have enough belief in what it is that you can do for people because you question it all the time, yet you're the #1 female coach out of hundreds and hundreds of other female coaches in Action Coach. You're inspiring to them, Terry. Why is it you don't believe it? Because I was top dollar earning, but I still doubted myself. And so we sort of pushed aside a lot of the business strategies type of thing. We worked on it, but he worked more on helping me be okay being me and not get caught up in what if people think I'm a fake, because that was this is not your story, this is mine. What if what I was taught with Action Coach, people saw as true, and that is fake it till you make it, because that's how we were trained. What if people thought that? And that was a story I held in my head through nearly 5 years of being with them, and I was with them nearly 7. So the last 2, obviously, I got out of my own way, and I chose to stabilize my income and not work my backside off to make $40,000, $50,000 a month, and stabilize it around 20 to 30 and be comfortable and be happy, and knowing that I am valuable and I am giving value and I am loving it and all these things. And it was just through working through that. So that it's perfect. That's how we'll work through the structure of a plan, but also looking at the challenges being what's going to stop you doing that, meaning not lack of action, because we can strategize all that, not lack of sources and different, strategies. It's more around you and what would stop you from achieving it. So we'll work around that. That makes perfect sense to me.
Okay.
So the other part of what I wanted to say is with our sessions, these will be our weekly sessions as I committed to you. What I'm launching as that, I can't remember what date I've told them, my team, is I'm going to start introducing group sessions within the membership. So it's group Q&A sessions, stuff like that. So you can get access to come on those. The outcome for that is for the members to get to know each other and be able to get to know what each other does. And that helps both mentally, but it also helps in, you never know where your next client's going to come from. So it's a little bit like the feedback session in Entrepreneur Summer School. I've spoken about them, but I hadn't launched them. I am launching them. So that will give you another opportunity to get that level of connection. And it's guided by the questions that come out of it. So the content's guided by that. So I might have spoken a bit about that before. Okay. So what I want to do is keep you focused on a plan that's going to work for you. So based on your 12-month outcomes that you want to achieve being the end of December 2021, so 12 months plus, we're going to work towards that and then look at, is working on the promotion plan process the best way for you to work? If it is, yes, we'll continue to work on that. I mean, it is a really good structure, but it doesn't flow for everybody. I like it. I adapt it slightly myself. but it's a good structure. It's good knowing that you've got, you know, a structured plan behind it, and it saves us creating something new. So let's look at, before we go into that, you spoke about you've got clients, but you're not getting much new work. So I can, go on.
Do you want me to just say a bit about that? Okay, right. So when I do work with, I mean, so you know, when I started my business, so this was back in sort of summer 2011. I mean, times were a little, there were quite a few businesses around with quite big budgets around content, and so I worked with people like the British Council, big sort of outplacement providers like sort of 1080 over here, and payroll businesses, and there's a whole bunch of organizations where I was kind of, because I was just starting out, I was just kind of doing virtually anything for them. You know, I was sort of doing anything to do with sort of content, and that could be sort of blogs or websites. And then I started to get in some really meaty projects, and which is I regard as my sort of purple period, where I was sort of doing loads of big meaty sort of thought leadership work, which is where I suppose I'm like a pig in what's it, really, because I'm I just love getting into sort of big sort of big reports, collating lots of views from different sources, and bring that, and then producing something that's genuinely original. And so that's the kind of work I've been doing with clients. And so fast forward now to probably about this time last year, and if I'm completely honest with myself, I would say that in a way the pandemic has been a bit of a camouflage, if you like, for the fact that a lot of that work started to tail off. And I don't think I've done anything particularly wrong. A lot of people tell me I'm really good at what I do, but it just felt like the world was changing, and I think I have come to it. This is what I'm hesitating to say that this is what I'm about to say, but I probably have an insecurity around me that I think I'm expensive, and for what I do, and that there is I'm in my 50s now, and I think there's a whole generation of content scribblers, sort of who are sort of in younger than me, who are probably doing this for far less money. And what I'm bringing to the party, I think, is sort of quality and experience in what I'm doing. But on the face of it, I'm expensive, and yet I read all these kind of management books saying people constantly underestimate how much they're worth, and and that they should hold fast on what they're doing, because that was a model was working for very well for some time. And what's happened is there's been this slow erosion in income that's been happening in the pandemic. So if we go forward from this time last year to March, I think that the work was already tailing off a bit. What happened with the pandemic was that initially there was a camouflage in the other direction, because everybody wanted to know about the pandemic. And so I was writing about the bloody pandemic all the time, about what the impact that would have on business. And that was okay for 2 or 3 months. I realized that wasn't really a sustainable model. So, and by the time you got to June, people were bored of writing about the pandemic or getting other people like me to write about it. And so there was this kind of dip round about June, which was actually it was fortunate in a way, because I joined the Genius U thing. I was lapping up a lot of the the insights that I was sort of getting from that, and then the summer school was there, and the work has been sort of ticking along. And I'm sort of I have sort of clients like the Top Employers Institute, and a couple of long-standing clients. But it's not at the volume that it was before. And if I give you an example of something that probably fed all my insecurities, came last week, where I was given a chance to write a couple of, to write a couple of reports I've been kind of sniffing around the edges of for the Top Employers Institute. And I pitched for these, that basically they got in touch and they said, we normally get somebody else to write this, but we've really liked what you've done, and could you quote for it? And so I thought, oh, that's fantastic, you know. So I was very, you know, like a little puppy. I was sort of, filling out this, sort of, I was just putting in the quote, sort of, and actually thought I'd do this, and I put in a quote roughly the size based on, the word rate that I'd been working with them on much shorter pieces, but for a much bigger couple of reports. And I put in this thing, and then there was, and I got this email back the day after, which said, so this quote you've put in, is that for one report or two? And it was actually, as in, is that the price you're quoting for both or each report?
Yeah.
And the implication was, bloody hell, this is expensive. And and I didn't think it was particularly expensive relative to things I've done for other people in the past. And I said, no, it's for each. And then I kind of said, oh yes, but if you take both, then I'm taking 10% off anyway, and sort of doing it a sort of, and then I got this email back, short email from somebody who's been very good at giving me work, very short, saying, we looked at your proposal, and I'm afraid it's quite a bit outside of our budget, and so we're sticking with the other writer. And the deflation I sort of felt, from that, having been sort of so excited earlier in the week, was quite something, because I was really, I've been going on my little customer pathway with this client, and I've been building up bigger and bigger things with them. And I thought, this is it. This is the bit where I've totally cracked it with this client. And then suddenly, no, you're just too expensive. And it was kind of, just felt like a bit of a kind of slap in the face. And I think in a way, that was the most obvious example of something I've been feeling over the last year, that they're thinking, well, Trevor, he does a really good job, but he's a bit pricey, isn't he? And yet there's every time I read about this, people are saying, you've got to hold your price, don't undervalue yourself. And yet by not undervaluing myself, I feel like I feel like I might be losing business. Then again, the other way of looking at that is I've got more time to go out and find the new business that really does deserve me, so you can look at it in two ways. I'm aware of both ways, but the kind of I got from that, so around about Thursday, Friday last week, sort of made me think, well, actually, I'll mention that to Terry, because that's a good example of the overall kind of feeling I've got about the market at the moment. Is this making sense?
Yeah, totally. If we look at it from the perspective of, if you've defined your avatar clearly, so you know who it is that you want to work with, and you know what you want to do with that avatar, and you know their problem, and you know your promise based on the problem you're solving, then the price it has to be associated, it has to be related to those things. So I look at, and I understand that, I understand how you'd feel, because I've felt similar things in the past. I look at it like, if I'm producing an outcome for an avatar, and I know that it's going to support them profitably, because that's my goal, is to be able to put money on the bottom line of the people that I mentor or coach. Then if my price is X, and I know that I can make them even 3 times that amount, then if they say no, it's either because I haven't explained it enough or shown them enough of the promise and the value I'm going to give them, or they're just the wrong avatar. So it's like, sometimes I've had in the past people that have said no to me from pricing, and it's deflated me. But when I've reviewed the situation, they're people or they're organisations I probably wouldn't have enjoyed working with in the long run. I know you've said you've worked with these guys before, but sometimes it's the time, those messages say it's the time to shift, and it's the time to actually say, well, I have value. People have paid it before. Yes, the market shifted, but these people who will pay it again, who are they? And then the confidence becomes more by, I need to set myself up so I'm confident enough to go to a different market who will pay that price, because you're going back through the old. It's like me going back and, when I've accepted my contract price with Roger, in the different programs that I run, and suddenly go in and say, I want more. I know this is a different program, but I want more for this. And they say, well, no, because they're so used to paying me what they have or whatever, or at the moment we're pandemic and we can't pay those fees. And so, well, I'm worth it. So too bad, I'll find someone who will, and that's what I'm meaning. It's like, it could be a time to shift. It could be a time to look at it from a different perspective. How driven are you by money?
I'm driven by it. It's a great question, because I'm driven by money in the sense that, if there's a financial target, that I kind of, when I'm relating, so for example, when I was doing this entrepreneur summer school, the bit that I probably used as my starting point post summer school was the flight deck, for example, Sandra Morell's flight deck. And it's the numbers, because I originally was trained as a sort of econometrician, and I do relate to numbers very closely, so I am driven by that. I am not driven in the sense of, I've made double, so say I'd made double what I made last year, and then how do I make double again, and then double again, and then double again? I mean, Roger Hamilton, I heard, told a story about that when he was kind of at college, and he was doing an interview with Money Revealed, where he was talking about, as a street artist, he was sort of making double and thinking about how he could make more and more. And I really like conceptually the idea of that, about asking yourself, how can I make double that? But I think in a way, I'm not interested in that for its own sake. I'm interested in security, if you like, and that I suppose I'm driven by targets and money to the point where I don't have to worry about money, and if I don't have to worry about, then I don't really care how much more than that level I particularly make. This is an expensive part of the world, so I do need to make a certain amount, and I'm not making that at the moment. But but it would only take a few things to change for me to be able to make that and some more as well. And then I think once I get beyond that, then that's where I probably move from being, the best yellow. I'm actually more interested, if you like, from the what would I think in the short term would be financially driven motivation to get up to that level of comfort and beyond, to then I think there's a new set of ambitions which I genuinely hold, which is about the yellow to green thing in GMT terms, where I do want to sort of see how much further I can go with it in terms of actually developing, a sort of a me business to a we business, and so to me there's about being the best yellow I could be, and I'm talking in those terms rather than financial terms. But the financial things are definitely a motivation at the moment to get up to a certain level, and then beyond that, I think it's kind of the money becomes less important. It's more the sort of the exercise of potential, I think.
Yeah. What's your purpose? Have you done your purpose test?
My purpose test. Which one was that? Was that the
UN goals?
Oh yeah. My purpose. I did it twice. The first one came out as an end to hunger, I think, and then the second one, which is probably something I feel much more passionately about, sort of on reflection, was about the institutions, and I forget what it's called now. The what's it called? The structures and institutions goal. I can't remember what the exact term of it. Do you know the one I mean?
I think so. Let me just.
I think basically, so for example, I'll give you an example of it. Is that I do think, so for example, without getting too political about this, I'm very exercised about this US election next week, because I see one person as undermining democracy completely, and I see the other person. You can probably guess which one is which one's which, as you know, by questioning the whole legitimacy of the election itself, and another person, you know, who I think is the good guy in this, you know, who's actually trying to restore some sort of what I regard as respect and standards and so on. So on those UN goals, I think it's whatever the one is called that's the UN. I can look it up on my profile actually.
I've got it here.
You got it, yeah. You know the one I mean then. So.
And can you say that?
Sorry.
Can you see my?
Oh, hang on. Sorry. Okay, let's go back. It's the
institutions, peace, justice.
Yeah, strong. Yeah, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Because I feel like there's something pretty horrible happening in the world at the moment, and you know, in terms of the undermining of institutions, and I also think it's the same in this country with Brexit, you know, and which I think is a kind of road to nowhere personally. Yeah, because my instinct is all about sort of collaboration and reaching across borders and having strong institutions to keep the things we all hold dear. But you know, so I suppose that's my underlying thing. So I'm particularly exercised about that at the moment.
So this makes sense though, because obviously your purpose drives you with what you do, and that's like mine's quality education. So mine is every time that I'm doing something, I'm supporting someone to learn something that can ultimately make the world a better place, then I'm fulfilled. So that's my goal. And that's why I'll take on some clients as a, you know, coaching for a cause and different things like that. So it makes sense. So we've got to make sure that we're aligning with your purpose and we're aligning with your values and your passions. So what did you do? I haven't looked at your genius profile, but have you also done your passions test?
I
can have a look while we're talking.
Okay, yeah. I thought that was my passions test. I'm getting them mixed up. So
yeah, passions is your 5 passions. Like,
oh yeah.
Can't find that.
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
Do I find that on my own profile?
I'll have a look. Well, I'll share it and look while we're.
I've got them. Okay. It's partner, balance, relaxation, spirit, and freedom.
Relaxation, spirit, and freedom. Notice there's nothing in there apart from the last one that sort of relates to anything financial.
Yeah.
It's all the opposite.
Good point. Yeah. I want. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. So.
Freedom can to a little bit, because it depends what each means to you. I think that's putting a meaning to it. And, you know, it's like how I look at things and how I work with clients is what's your purpose? What are your passions? What are your value? What's your vision for the future, your long-term vision, your legacy, your 10-year, your 5-year, 3-year, 2, 1, whatever. And how do these all align together based on what you're doing? You know, it's like when we don't get results from something, it's generally because we're out of alignment with something, you know, and it's like if you look at what your purpose is and what your passions are, it's not about the money. It's all about life. And so hence why the money side of it is probably a little bit where it is. And it's just changing what the meaning of some of these are a little bit too. Like if I say, because mine from memory now, mine changed, and I think partners first for me. And what does it mean? It means my partner and the life that we can live together. And we've got, when I look at what that is and buying this property and living out on a rural property and having this lifestyle, what does that look like, and how do we get there? It takes us to earn an income to be able to do that, and the sooner we can get it, the better. So being my top passion, it's, I link it to what I need to do financially in order to fulfill that. If I say, if my husband gave up his fly in, fly out job in the mines where he earns a lot of money, if he gave that up and came home and worked an 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 job, would that fulfill that passion of partner? Yeah, he'd be around all the time, but we'd be in a position of my fear of ending up like my parents, where they lived on a pension, where they struggled, where they fought, all these things that would bring back that. So I put a meaning to it. So sometimes putting a meaning to it for people helps you see that, in order to live to those passions, that means this. So I really need to look at what I'm doing around my business and my purpose of how I'm achieving that. Does that make sense?
It does. And I should, I'll just reference here a conversation that I had. So in the Trusted Buyers Club, for example, I had a session with Lynn Mann. Do you know Lynn Mann? She's kind of, no, well, she's she sort of stood out a little bit in terms of one of the products she was selling, which was called Change Your Money Story. And where she goes into sort of your perceptions around money. And I realized, actually, just one second, I'm just going to dig it out. So I can find it. Where I kind of came to 3 realizations about the way I looked at money, which were holding me back on the money side of things, which is probably related to what you're saying. So hopefully we can put these bits of the jigsaw together, that I needed to kind of almost like tilt my balance of the way that I saw money in a way that my thoughts about money are almost sort of entirely negative, if you like, in that I'm thinking, what if I don't earn this amount, so that, nobody's going hungry around here or anything, but it's kind of, or we can't go on the holidays that we want to. Let's assume we can go on holidays for a moment. You know what I mean? Or live in the comfort that we want to. It's not a sort of beyond comfort and a plus a bit more, not having to worry. I don't really have a clear vision of what the money is. I just want to not worry about it. And so, but things that held me back, 3 things that I wrote down at the end of all this, which kind of have held true for me, but I'm not sure I kind of deliver on them exactly, but I know that they're true, is that money is a means and not an end. That it's not kind of how big your pile is, it's kind of what you're doing with it, and the pleasure it's giving you. The money is and related to that is that money is a flow, not a stock, sorry, I'll start that again. Money is a means, not an end, is that it's there so that you can do the things that you really want to do, maybe those 5 passions perhaps, and that it's a flow, not a stock, that it just comes and it goes, and actually that's more important than the pile, and then money is a value and not a cost. For example, we went away on this weekend in London, and and at the end of it, my wife was saying, we've had a really great time, but that cost excuse my language, a lot, of money to be up there. And I said, probably the first time, she was kind of going, oh, I don't believe you said that. It's that I said, yeah, but we got a lot of value out of it, and we got something out of it. We spent time and so on. And I kind of intermittently practice these 3 things now, but only intermittently. It's like a sort of like a dodgy, it's like a dodgy Wi-Fi reception. It sometimes is kind of on and sometimes off, and on a good day I'm doing these things, and on a bad day I kind of revert to how I was seeing things before. But I could relate those in a way to what you're saying about money doesn't seem to be, beyond this sort of hazy, the negative notion of, oh God, I've got to make sure I've got enough. That there's not some huge kind of I want to be a millionaire and have 5 Rolls Royces. I don't have that I don't place any huge value on material goods or anything. And but I do place huge value on the 5 things, amongst others, that I've got listed there on my passions. There you go.
Look, excuse me. My dog managed to get back in somehow. Money's energy, right? And so is everything. Everything that flows, it's energy. It really is nothing. It's just represented by whether it's paper or whatever it is. And it's really the flow of value, like you say. And it's the value that you put on it. It's determined by what governments and, obviously everything's pretty much determined by the US dollars that says this is what something's worth, but it's only really worth what the value you put on it. And it's like, I look at money as the value of it being, you're right, what you can do with it, from the perspective of the impact I can make as a result of being able to have money. And, I've gone through, when I was like close to $1 million a year coach, and having the 4-story house and having the Mercedes-Benz, the 2 Mercedes-Benz, and having the world holidays and, all these things that it can have, and going, it's nice. And I was happy, but it wasn't everything. To being able to appreciate the value of money from a whole different perspective, and then saying, I don't need the 4-story house. Like, I'd much rather the property out in the country where I can enjoy nature, and I need money to be able to fulfill that. So my perception of what money brings, rather than looking at it from before where it was the Rolls Royce lifestyle, to now it's the value for, which is probably in some respects, I need a similar amount of money to achieve the goals, but my association with it is different. So where it's like, oh, you've got to have the Mercedes and all these different things to show you're successful. That's ego. It's about being able to have the money to be able to, and attach the value to it, to be able to achieve our passions and our purpose and those things. And even more so, my biggest purpose is my children. That's my legacy. It's being, showing my girls that they can be everything they choose to be, and showing them that they can achieve things financially as well. So it's not about ego, it's about that passion and purpose. So it's like, I do it for that reason as well. It's like what I do within flow, but it's attaching what the value of it is to you, because when you've got that side of it sort of semi-nailed, the confidence and everything comes with it. And it's like the feeling deflated becomes less. It doesn't ever go away, but it becomes less, where you go, it's more of a, okay, well, what didn't I do right then? I need to obviously change something, as opposed to I'm too expensive, and shifting that mindset around it. So it comes back to that question of, do I have enough? When is enough enough? When enough is, when the money stops flowing, the energy stops flowing. And what then? So it's like, what is enough? The more that I earn, as long as it's within my values, my passions, my purpose, everything I believe in, is the more contribution I can make to, the institutions and whatever it is that is your purpose in life, or being that example, or leaving that legacy, and it's not to say that you've got to go out of this world being a billionaire. There's a percentage of people that do have that as a goal, to become one. But it's certainly not one of my goals, but it's more about, it's that knowing that you're leaving something that is what you believe in, and money is just a part of that. It just supports you to get there. So I think the more that we look at those sides of things, and then, if things are not flowing through the process the way that we want, as in going through your plan, you're not achieving everything you want to, we have to keep bringing it back to your beliefs around money, your beliefs are, the money and the confidence and sort of going hand in hand. Because like I said, at the moment, everything seems to be about things that are more, I'm okay, as opposed to what more could I be, you know. And so what I would love to see you do is to create that vision of what, as far ahead as you can go, create that vision of what you want life to look like, and then create a vision, a future self vision, meaning that it's who you are. It's authentically you. It is your identity, but you're living into who you truly are, as opposed to right now, you're living into maybe mediocre as opposed to your real true identity. If that makes sense, because it's like, if we see
just that last bit, the mediocre bit. Sorry, can you just say that again? Because that's
living acceptance of it being just okay. You know, instead of going, well, it's like standards and norms, right? So when you set a standard, if you hold that standard for long enough, it becomes normal.
Yeah.
So you either stay at that standard, which is normal, or you raise the standard. And it's like every time you raise it, keep it for long enough, it becomes normal. So it's like, well, what are my standards that, you know, am I living to the standards? Or am I accepting this as normal and it's too uncomfortable to raise it to another level? So, you know, life for me does need money, living on that simple property. It's like anyone who said that they're okay just living the life that they live when they know that they could be so much more because they are so much more, they're just not living it, is a liar to themselves. Because it's like, I'm just going to tell everyone I'm okay because I don't want to sound materialistic. I don't want to sound egotistical. So I'm just going to tell everyone I don't want that lifestyle. You don't need to have that Rolls Royce lifestyle, but you can be so much more impactful to everyone that you want to make a difference to when you are changing the way that you think about it, and the rest follows, because it's energy, and our thoughts and our thinking energy and our money energy go hand in hand. So, you know, money flows where energy goes, thoughts goes where energy flows, you know, all those sort of things come into the mix. So for you, what's really key, because we've got 5 minutes left, is to write what you want it to look like, your vision for the future in whatever format works for you. If you want to, I mean, handwriting is better. It always is, because we allow our creativity comes from our brain and flows down to our hand. Typing, you restricted by the keys being in a certain place. So you're going to type whatever. I prefer people to handwrite it, but it's whatever works for you. I'm not going to hold you to a particular way. And who's your future self? Go as far ahead as you can go. That's at a good place for you, and let's bring that back and bring it back into your plan, because I think right now that's some of the missing links.
So when you're saying this, you're talking about life, you know, not just the business. You're talking about the sort of the wider, the context, you know. So, you know, because if I said to you, if I was talking about, say, what do I want to be in 10 years time, a lot of what I would be talking about would be, well, probably I'd say, you know, so, you know, I really want to be successful in what I'm doing, and I do feel a genuine passion. But also, you know, I'd like to still be happily married. I'd still like my kids to be growing up and, you know, happy and educated. I'd like to speak a foreign language fluently. And, you know, I'd like, there's all these various kind of things that you could say aren't related to work, but actually they are in a way. And because whether I am happy and whether I'm good company and a good father very often would relate to, you know, whether I'm happy in myself, you know, sort of in what I do a lot of the hours of the day, you know, so,
100%, you just nailed it. It's about what life looks like, you know, and your business is just a vehicle for that. So if you don't get clear what life looks like, it's like, you know, my husband saying, he job hops all the time because he goes, oh, I'll go there because I can earn more money. And then he goes to this place where he earns more money. And then he realizes he's in the next tax bracket. So the more he earns, he's paying from 30 cents in the dollar to 47 cents in the dollar. So working harder to earn more means he could come away with almost less, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I said to him, while you're chasing money all the time, you're never going to be fulfilled, because you're always going to be chasing the next thing that's going to give money. I said the idea is to sit back and say, you know, what does life look like, and how can we achieve it without chasing money? So it's more about that bigger picture of life, as opposed to you know, business being everything, and in 10 years time this is what I want to be doing in my business. That's just a part of it. It's like everything that we do in our plan moving forward has to be, how's that moving you towards that end vision? You know, if 10 years is as far as you want to go, I'm happy with that. Or 5 or whatever.
I'd like to have a good chunk of actually, no, I don't even know if that's true. I was going to say I'd like to retire when I'm 65, but I don't know. I'm 54 at the moment, but I don't even know if that's true, because I don't want to have some, because I'm thinking of it in terms of how my dad retired. Like he kind of 65, he had I mean, he wasn't quite the gold watch and off you go, but it was kind of, it was very much, he was working 1 minute and then not working the next minute. And I'm not sure I really want that. I would like to, from the work world, I'd probably end up slowly fading away, you know, or doing the work that I wanted to do, you know, so, you know, but probably saying no to stuff that actually no longer motivated me. So, you know, okay, so I've got a bit of thinking to do there.
Yeah, and that's what it's more than anything. The work involved in it is more the mental side of it, as opposed to the writing side of it. But like I said, there's two. One is your vision for your life. The other one is your future self. So you can write them in one, or you can write them separately. I find that some people write their future vision of what life will look like from that, you know, bigger picture, and then write the story of who I need to be in order to achieve those things. And does that align with who I truly am and who I see myself as? Not, you know, the connection between achievement and who you need to be can sometimes be a disconnection, because, okay, well, I've got to really change who I am to achieve that, and I don't want to. Or actually, you know what? I totally know in my heart I am that person. I'm just not living into it now. So it'll give you either a connect or a disconnect. So if you can do that, it will take a thinking, but don't procrastinate on it. You know, it's like when I journal. Sometimes I go, well, I do my best to journal every single day. And sometimes I think, what am I going to write today? And I don't think about it. I'll just go, okay, stop thinking and just write anything, just to keep that habit of writing. And when I read back on those days, they actually make more sense sometimes than when I'm more structured around it, you know. And so journaling for me is more of a opportunity for me to get a bit more creative. And go, well, this is what I'm thinking and feeling. I'm just going to write it down. And my kids will find my journals one day and think, oh my God, and the grandchildren, Granny was crazy. But I want them to, so they can write a book of my memoirs, right?
Yeah.
So that's your homework for this week.
Okay. How long should you think I should spend on it to do that? I mean, because you said don't procrastinate, and it's like I was saying with Genius U, that I could easily just kind of get lost in the archives of Genius U for ages on end. But what I've learned over the years to do is actually say, well, I'm going to devote this amount of time to it and just do my best shot in that time. I mean, would you say like a couple of hours or?
Look, I teach also this in iLab in Bali, right? And we give everyone 2 hours, but some people, I say you've got 2 hours within the program to do it, but you've got as long as you want, but you must come with it by tomorrow morning. So most people will continue and they might do 3 hours of it. Some people do it in 10 minutes. You know, and they just write bullet points, which is not what I want. I want it to be your story of what it looks like. 2 hours is a good guideline for it. And, you know, don't try to force yourself to do 2 hours if you haven't got 2 hours of writing, you know, just, and sometimes you write it and you go back and read it and rewrite it. So it's okay. Whatever works for you, but 2 hours I'd say is a good block of time.
Okay, all right, brilliant. Okay, sorry, I know you've got to go. So that's great. And yeah, okay. So and the next week we're on to
on Tuesday. We're back where we set the. I think
where we're going to be from now on.
This week, because we've got the partnership thing tomorrow night.
Yeah. Okay, and then so for next week I've got it in my diary anyway.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Awesome.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Cheers,
Pleasure.
Terry.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks, Trevor. Bye.
Bye.